I mentioned in my previous video that there is a large group of Chinese netizens who are emotionally close to Israel. But the Chinese government firmly supports Arab and Islamic countries in foreign policy and condemns Israel. This is indeed a puzzling phenomenon. China is also facing the invasion of extreme Islamism and has even suffered serious casualties. But this does not prevent China from becoming friends with most Islamic countries. Pakistan, China's closest quasi-ally, is an Islamic country. In this video, we will discuss why China attaches importance to Islamic countries and why the United States will pay a heavy price for despising Islamic countries. Many people say that the Jews suffered cruel persecution in World War II and that the Jews have the right to return to their homeland, which is their promised land. In fact, these statements are completely untenable. There are many countries that suffered seriously in World War II. For example, China, as one of the four major allies and a victorious country, recognized the independence of Outer Mongolia under the coercion of the Soviet Union, and the Chinese did not say that they have the right to recover Outer Mongolia. The three Baltic countries were also devastated in World War II. After the end of World War II, they were still ruled by the Soviet Union until the disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991. Arab countries did not massacre Jews in World War II. It was the Germans who massacred Jews. If Jews are to be compensated, it should be paid by those anti-Semitic countries in Europe. Why should Arabs pay? I am an atheist. I stand on a fair stand and say, the Promised Land is said by Jews or Christians. Muslims can deny it. Muslims can also admit it, but Muslims can also say that they are also descendants of Abraham, and Allah gave this land to Arabs. Does God's word have more legal effect than Allah? Therefore, the claim of the Promised Land is completely nonsense. So why do the United States and the West firmly support Israel? For many years, Christians and Muslims have fought many wars around the holy city of Jerusalem. The Crusaders continued to march eastward and establish the Kingdom of Jerusalem. In the end, under the leadership of Saladin, the Islamic army won a decisive victory and Jerusalem was occupied by Muslims. Later, the Ottoman Turks rose, captured Constantinople, and destroyed the Eastern Roman Empire. It can be said that after the revival of the West, the most wanted thing is to recapture Jerusalem. Russia, founded by the Orthodox Church, continued to expand towards Constantinople in order to restore the glory of the Orthodox Church. As a result, the Ottoman Empire was beaten up by Britain, France, and Russia, and was completely dismembered after World War I. The British actually controlled the Middle East, and Jerusalem returned to the hands of the West. But after World War II, the East and the West confronted each other, and the West needed to occupy the moral high ground. If it continued to treat Arab countries as colonies, it would obviously be difficult to maintain. With the independence of Arab countries, Jerusalem was in the hands of Muslims. This was difficult for Western Christian countries to accept. So at this time, it was obviously the best solution to let the big money-making Jews return to their homeland to restore their country. Israel was able to defeat the Arab coalition in many wars. In addition to the Jewish fighting spirit of not fearing sacrifice, the strong assistance from the United States and Western countries was also very critical. Israel has long been the closest ally of the United States, and like Britain, it is equipped with the most advanced American weapons. Some weapons have not yet been popularized in the U.S. military, but Israel has put them into practice in the war. To be fair, Muslims were much more civilized in the process of fighting the Crusaders. Saladin's army was far more disciplined than the army of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, and they were far less brutal and greedy than the Crusaders. After his military victory, Saladin showed tolerance to Christians. Today, the brutality of Western countries and Israel against Muslims in the Middle East is outrageous. I strongly condemn terrorist acts, but to be honest, are the things that the United States and Israel are doing now more noble than terrorists? Another key reason why Americans support Israel is that Israel is the United States thug in the Middle East. It can create fear for wealthy countries such as Saudi Arabia and make them obey the hegemony of the US dollar. Otherwise, they will be beaten. Let's talk about China again. Why should it support Islamic countries? Although China is also facing the threat of Islamic extremism, especially terrorist organizations such as East Turkestan, China can fight terrorism through violent means to ensure the safety of domestic civilians. The competition between China and the United States for national power has been fully launched and is irreversible. It is necessary to determine the winner. In this case, it is impossible for China not to support Islamic countries for the sake of national interests. In addition to Pakistan, which is very important to China, the 5 countries in Central Asia, Arab countries such as Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates in the Middle East, Iran, Turkey, etc., are all Islamic countries. Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei in Southeast Asia are important members of ASEAN. Supporting these countries in resisting the military blackmail of the United States will not only benefit China's image of justice, but also bring real national interest to China. The United States has hundreds of military bases overseas and 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carrier battle groups. In the short term, China still has no way to compete with the United States. Therefore, Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern countries still have to look at the face of the Americans. When the United States blackmails them, they can only succumb in most cases. This state is difficult to change in the short term. But in another 10 to 20 years, it will be difficult for Americans to maintain this situation. Because the United States is engaged in a fierce economic and technological war with China, the Americans have not gained any advantage in this war of national strength. On the contrary, the U.S. technological blockade of China has reached the brink of bankruptcy. China is also challenging the U.S. economic and financial hegemony through the BRICS organization and the Belt and Road Initiative. I personally believe that even if the United States is not defeated, it will suffer a heavy blow. It is almost impossible for it to dominate the world in the future. China can use most of its national strength to consume the United States. And the United States, in addition to confronting China, must also guard against the vast Muslim countries, as well as old rivals such as Russia and North Korea. Even Japan, South Korea, and the European Union will immediately abandon the United States and pursue their own interests once the United States truly declines. After all, they have also suffered from the exploitation and oppression of the United States. Once the U.S. economic and technological hegemony declines, it will not be able to maintain a huge military force, let alone provide unlimited support to Israel. Therefore, Muslim countries do not need to worry. Just watch the confrontation between China and the United States and support China to the best of their ability. For example, give priority to purchasing China's high-tech products and give priority to Chinese companies to participate in major projects. China does not need any military support, and it will definitely be able to drive the United States off the throne and establish a more diverse and fairer new world order.